So the Kia EV9 is here, and this is a big boy. This is a very, very big car. It's very in your face as well. Now, personally, I actually really like the design of this because we're at an age now where production cars are looking just like concept cars used to. And really, this is like a whole new face for Kia. It's very distinctive with the lights and how these double stacked kind of pixel LED headlights look, and you've got that big Kia badge on the front, and it's very, well, it's kind of in your face, but is it in a bad way? Well, you'll have to decide that. For me, I do like the design. I love the wheels. The wheels look absolutely cool. This kind of square round design, I'm a big fan of that as well. The satin paint, not everyone's going to like it, but you can get it metallic, and there are other colors available. This is the GT line model. You've got large gloss black elements like the door mirrors along the sides. The door handles pop out when you unlock the car. It's all very stylish, very modern, very contemporary, but it's also, as I said, very big. This car is just over 5 meters in length, and I'll be honest, you do kind of feel that size. You're certainly aware of it when you're driving, but it is a very easy car to drive, very smooth, but we'll get onto that a little bit later when we get out on the road. The whole length though, part of that is because this is a real proper 3-row electric SUV. It's also got a huge battery in the floor, almost 100 kilowatt hour usable battery, and that gives us a driving range in WLTP combined of just over 500 kilometers. Now, if you want to feed that battery, you've got rapid charging. Up to 240 kilowatt is possible because this is capable of working with both 400 and 800 volt architecture, so that's pretty neat as well. The back of it, again, you've got this very funky light design, looks very, very cool, but it is also very practical. So yes, this does have 3 rows, but you do still get just over 300 liters of boot space when all of the seats are in use. But drop them down and you can have a 6 or 7 seat SUV or a large electric van, whichever you want to have. And there's a bit more extra storage underneath there. I like that you can put the tonneau cover in there as well. It fits in out of the way, so you don't have to worry about leaving it in a garage or at home or under the stairs if you take it out. That's pretty useful. There is also a small frunk as well. It's a little bit bigger on the rear wheel drive motors, but if you have the dual motor setup, the frunk is a little bit smaller. It's still big enough though to get all your charging cables in if you want to keep that separate as well, so you can put it in there as well. On the interior, it is very, very roomy first of all, but you've also got a very digital experience. What I mean by that is you've got a 12.3-inch display right in front of you for the driver instruments. You've got a small 5.3-inch display in the middle for all the ventilation, and another second 12.3-inch display for all the infotainment system. And you can access that by these kind of haptic buttons here, touch surface on the front. So all you have to do is press that and it will bring you through all the different menus. There's a huge array. The menu system, we could do a whole video just on the menu system. It's so deep, so in-depth. Everything is there. But if you don't want to use that, you do also then have all the usual stuff. Your Android Auto, your Apple CarPlay are going to be available wirelessly with this car as well. You do still have, thankfully, some physical controls. So if you want to adjust the temperature, the fan speed, you do that just by pressing these toggles. That is a very, very good thing because you want to have that available on your hand, very easy to touch. You don't have to worry about a touch screen. You just do that automatically without taking your eyes off the road. Now, when your eyes are on the road, you do have a front-facing driver monitor that does want to check. So if you start looking around at your phone or elsewhere, it will detect that, will alert you, ask you to please pay attention, which is a good thing, but it's one of an increasingly high number of driver assistance systems and safety features that are there to make sure that we drive according to the rules of the road. You get a full color head-up display in front of you as well, and that's really the most useful one you're going to look at all times. It gives you everything you need to know, like your current speed, turn-by-turn navigation, all that stuff. The steering wheel is kind of a bit of an unusual design. It's kind of squarish, circle-ish. It's got kind of glossy painted kind of plastic inserts here, which has all the physical buttons. They've kind of got a nice glossy feel. It's actually feels quite nice. It feels quite high quality, and for something that's a main touch point, it's something you're always going to be in contact with, that's important. It's nothing worse than when a car company cheaps out and puts in a substandard steering wheel. But this feels pretty good. You've got drive modes at the bottom and a terrain mode, and you've got paddles on the back of the steering wheel for adjusting the level of regen you have. So if you want to increase or decrease it, you can do that on the go. Your drive selector is here on the steering column. Very easy, just twist it forward, twist it back for drive or reverse, and press park in there to engage park. So that's quite useful. And your EV start button is also mounted on here too. There's loads of physical controls elsewhere though. Your heated seats, cooled seats, heated steering wheel, it's all done here on the door. You can adjust all the windows here as well on the doors. And you've got other things like wireless charging pad just in here. You've got a nice big storage area for 2 cup holders here, and a big empty bin in front of the center console, because your drive selector is up here on the steering column. So that frees up all the space, and you've still got USB-C charge ports there as well. So, you know, you've loads of opportunities to charge devices, keep everything topped up. You've got your sounds as well. You've got, you know, a top of the line Meridian sound system in here as well. So all your music is going to sound very good. And I quite like how they've integrated the vents here on top and across the center here as well. Very easy to get at, very easy to control, and they're exactly where you want them to be. The driving seats themselves also deserve a bit of a mention. They're super comfortable, as well as being heated and cooled. They just have a lot of nice support in here as well. This is very much something that I could imagine doing 2, 3, 4 hours of driving quite comfortably and arrive at the other end without having any sort of aches and pains. So that's pretty good too. And even when you stop along a really long journey, with that fast charging, you're not going to be stopped for very long. Now, this is also a family car. It's all about the seats in the back. So let's go take a look there. You can order the EV9 either in 6 or 7 seat configurations, but personally, I think the 6-seater is very, very cool, because you've got this free space in here between the 2 individual seats. They've got nice armrests here as well, and they're just very, very comfortable. You've also got a large glass sunroof too, so that's pretty nice. And there's also rear ventilation controls here as well, so that's pretty useful. There are other features, some extra storage back here, and if you're sitting behind the front seat passenger, the front seat can also be electrically adjustable. There's buttons on the side, so you can move it forward if you want to have more of a kind of limousine position, and really useful USB-C ports on the sides of the seats here as well. And there's one other very cool feature, which is with these 6-seat setup, and just going to get out to show you this. If you're a parent, you've got a small kid in a child seat, you can just turn this and swivel the seat round 90 degrees. Makes it much easier. Put in a child seat, make sure they're strapped in. Very, very useful bit of design. Or you can also, if you're stopped and you're charging, turn it all the way around and face whoever's sitting in the 3rd row. Either way, it's a very, very useful feature. Great to do. And you still have a button here on top that allows you to send that forward. Makes it much easier to get into the back. Very, very useful. It's cool to have a nice degree of different options or different ways of utilizing the rear space. Even on fairly average roads, you are always aware of the size of the EV9. It is a big car. It's very much a car that, well, it's better suited really to much larger roads like you have in the United States, where a car like of this size is probably not going to feel quite as large, but nevertheless it does actually hold its own fairly well. Now, you are aware of its weight, especially through sort of faster flowing corners like this. Even though a lot of that weight is low down in the car, you do feel it trying to work to keep everything in check. And if I'm honest, actually, you know, I mentioned earlier that I like the steering wheel design, but I actually don't particularly like the grip that I have on the steering wheel. I don't know, I just can't quite get used to it, you know. Maybe I just need to have a little bit more time driving the car, but I just feel like I'm kind of holding onto it rather than gripping it. And I know that might kind of sound a little bit confusing, but it just doesn't give me the same sort of level of confidence with how I grip it, because you've got these paddles right here, and just the way that the actual spokes of the steering wheel are shaped, I'm not particularly keen on it, especially more so because when you want to actually exploit all the power. This is a dual motor version. It's got a whopping 700 Newton meters of torque. Now, the 0 to 100 is just over 5 seconds, which is pretty brisk, but it's kind of that instantaneous torque shove that you have from an electric car that really makes this kind of seem almost unnecessarily fast, because really, who needs to go that quickly, that suddenly in a car of this size? I mean, it is, on one hand, yes, quite impressive at how it does actually lay down that power, and it will get from point to point very, very quickly, and it will hold on fairly well. But granted, I'm on my own in the car. If I had 5 or 6 other people in the car, there'd be a lot more mass involved, and I'm not quite sure I want to be depending on it gripping all that much. And let's not forget that Kia is also planning a higher performance GT model based on the EV9, similar to what it does with the EV6 GT. Now, of course, all that power is only there if you go looking for it, and staying in the regular normal mode is fine actually. There's plenty of power there that it will comfortably cruise at motorway speeds, and yes, there's enough shove when you want to have a quick overtake. But for the most part, it is a very docile car. It's very, very well insulated from the outside world. There's very little wind noise. Only on the motorways when we were up around 100, 110 kilometers an hour did you start to notice a little bit of wind noise around the large door mirrors, but that was really it. I mean, you're certainly never raising your voice having a conversation in this car, nor is there any sort of weird kind of synthesized noises coming through to the cabin, and there's also not really any significant road noise, even though this has very large wheels fitted to it. So that's a positive. This is definitely a car that majors in the refinement stakes. It is very comfortable overall, and the suspension is, if I'm honest, it's a little bit on the firm side, but it's, again, it's a bit of a trade-off between keeping the balance of all that sort of chassis composure and, you know, vehicle handling dynamics versus overall comfort. Now, the good news is it doesn't wallow around in corners. There's certainly nowhere near sort of excess levels of roll in that respect. But I think, you know, maybe a smidge more comfort wouldn't do this car any harm at all. Now, we're on fairly good roads here. We get the car back in Ireland on some of the less well-maintained roads. That might be a slightly different story, but either way, so far, road noise is very good. You know, the overall comfort inside, that level of refinement is very, very high, and it's very much befitting of a car at this price point, because let's not forget, this is a fairly expensive car, and as a Kia, it really has to kind of overperform to justify that price. Yes, Kia is a brand that has come on tremendously over the years, but still, the idea of having a Kia with a price tag of, you know, circa 85,000 euros, to some might be a little bit too much to swallow. Now, on a day-to-day basis, it's very easy to see how the EV9 could prove to be a big hit with families. After all, you've got loads of space inside, both practically and physically. You know, even the third row, adults can fit in there, which often isn't the case with 7-seaters. A lot of the time we kind of say that they're really more of a 5+2, but in this case, you know, adults will be able to sit back there, and you have that option of either having a 6-seater or a 7-seater as well. And personally, having tried out the 6-seater, I think it's kind of more useful to have. Not everyone, after all, needs a whole 7 seats, but it's good to have a choice either way. But it's really kind of how well made inside is one of the things that really impresses me about this, actually more so than the performance of the car. Everything in here feels absolutely rock solid, and the thing is, with an electric car, you've got to have a really good level of build quality, because squeaks and rattles that would normally be drowned out by a combustion engine, whether it be petrol or diesel, are much easier to pick up on and notice when you have a silent electric powertrain. And the Kia feels really well built, really well nailed together. Every part of it that you come in contact with has a kind of solid feeling. There's no sort of cheap plastics anywhere, certainly unless you really go looking for it. But even then, it's actually a pretty good quality. And overall, it's actually not bad when it comes to performance. We've been averaging around about 22-23 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers today, but that's over pretty mixed driving, including some mountainous terrain and a bit of motorway. So, you know, depending on how you're going to be driving, if you're going to be in a city, you may find that that number decreases a lot, or if you're on a motorway, obviously that figure will increase more. But overall, you know, it's not bad. You've got that big battery as well, so even when you do have it fully charged, there should be enough range to cover pretty decent, pretty sizable distances before you need to pull in and plug in that charger. They're the main things to take away from this. You're going to have pretty usable range thanks to that large battery, and that's what you're paying for really. But inside, very well made. You've got a load of features there as well. It's also very practical, so you've got plenty of functionality in here. And overall, I mean, okay, the design exterior is a little bit polarizing. Not everybody is going to like it. I'm a fan of it because it's just a little bit different. That's what I like. But overall, you know, as a family car, this can do everything. You know, if you've got a big family or a growing family, this is going to be able to swallow up everything you need to do. You've got bucket loads of performance. If anything, I think it has too much performance for this kind of a car. And as I mentioned earlier, there is an even more powerful version coming, which I can only imagine what that's going to be like to drive. But overall, yeah, Kia's done a top level job with this car. It's very well put together. It's very refined to drive. And yes, it is worth the money. So that's our first drive review of the Kia EV9. It's a very big car, but it's also a very impressive car. If you want to know more about it, head over to our website. It's CompleteCar.ie. You'll find it linked in the description below, and it's a great resource for finding your next new car. In the meantime, hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've watched this far, please do give it a thumbs up. More importantly, tell us what you think in the comments below. We'd love to know what you think about this new electric Kia. Thanks for watching.